Good morning, Life Point Church, and welcome back to our last day. And we're talking about your God-given promise, and we looked into the tribe of Dan. And as we enter into this last day, I began to just think on all our lessons that we went over and how to really sum it up. How do we really hammer down and really bring this lesson home? And I really think it is like this. A promise is worthless unless we take possession of it. Who cares about a promise unless you actually get it, right? If I promised you $1 million and said you have to come and take it or come and get it, I'll give it to you. You wouldn't sit at home and call yourself a millionaire until you got it, right? So our promises that God has given us, you know what? We have to go after them. We have to get it. Dan was promised, the tribe of Dan was promised this great big possession of land. But the truth is they had to go and they had to fight for it. It was going to be a struggle. And we talk about our faith sometimes and how we continue to walk in faith. And some people think that the walk of faith is just a leisurely walk through the park, that all you have to do is just stroll along with God and everything is just going to be great, right? But the walk of faith, I think, is more like a climb on a mountain. It's more like a fight. It's more like a thing that we're going to have to go and we have to possess and we have to struggle and fight and claw after it and just go. And we know that God will give us the victory, but sometimes it's not going to be easy. Sometimes there's going to be struggles. You're going to fall. That's going to be okay. We saw Samson had great promise. He struggled mightily with himself. He struggled with temptation. And when the enemy thought that he had been defeated, he went back finally and consecrated himself to God, and God gave him his power back, and he was able to achieve at least a great and mighty victory in his death. So what happened, though, with the tribe of Dan? They were supposed to go after and possess the land that God had given them, but it says that the Danites, they lost the land that they had, and they went and settled in another place, and they called that place Dan. It was kind of like they were fooling themselves. When we look at the geographical place where they ended up, it was far from where they were supposed to be, but they called that place Dan. So they had something, and they called that place God's promise, even though it wasn't. We can't fool ourselves and say, well, because I have this must be God's promise. When you know deep in your heart that God has told you he would do so much more. If God said that he would save your family and save your extended family and use you to do it, let God use you to do it. If God said that he would use you to preach his word, but you're far from anywhere from preaching a word right now, you know what? Consecrate yourself. Get back into God's promise and go after what he has for you. Wherever you are, let's get into God's word. Let's consecrate ourselves to prayer and to worship and let God reveal the promises that he has for us in this last day. I thank you so much for joining me this week, and I just hope that God would encourage you to continue on and to look after the promises that God has for us together as a church. Thank you so much for joining me this week.